And just like that, it is the college football bowl season. We are here for the NBC Sports Live College Football Betting Q&A hosted by BetMGM. I'm here with Vaughn Dalzell and Eric Froton, and we're going to give our best bets, leans, and angles for the college football bowl games up until the 21st. I'm going to kick things off with you, Eric. I want to ask you, how do you attack the board with so many opt-outs? And now we have the transfer portal that we have to worry about. Is there any angles or strategies that you like to kind of wrap your head around?
Yeah, I feel like in the era of the opt-out / the transfer portal, information is power. And just trying to be as on top of each team's, what's going on in their locker room, what's going on as far as their personnel is vital. And then obviously when you're picking these games too, with the exception of the transfer portal and the opt-outs, motivation.
Yes.
What is going on with the coaching staff? How did that team finish out the season? Were they happy about where they ended up? Are they happy? Are they disappointed they didn't get to a better bowl? So it's definitely a little bit more of an art than a science as it would be during the regular season. But that's part of what makes bowl season fun, is just trying to put the puzzle together with all these moving pieces.
Yeah, Vaughn, do you want to piggyback on anything that Eric's saying, or do you have any other strategies that you use?
Yeah, I was going to say, one thing, it's easy to, see how many opt-outs are not playing currently, but you need to also dig a little deeper, guys behind them, because,
Yes.
certain quarterbacks will be throwing footballs for the first time this weekend. And that's definitely worth noting, and then backup running backs, backup receivers. How deep are we going down the line of these teams needing help at certain positions? So that also bodes well for player props too, which I'm sure Eric will take advantage of with some over-unders. And, hopefully we'll point out. But obviously a game we'll talk about, which would be first, is Ohio and Georgia Southern, Brad. In that game, we saw the spread flip. Ohio was a 3-point favorite, and now Georgia Southern's laying 3.5 points. So, when I see stuff like this, that auto makes me like Georgia Southern as well, and take them a little more serious here. So I guess we should just dive in, Brad. What are you looking for in this game? Are you buying into that theory too of spreads?
Yeah, this one makes sense, right? Curtis Rourke's out, quarterback for Ohio. That's probably the biggest news. But Ohio has so many, I think it was a total of something like 3,000 or 4,000 combined snaps that are going to be out for this game, which is pretty tough, right? We see it time and time again. I think the biggest example is Florida when they played against UCF 2 years ago in the Gasparilla Bowl, where the Gators has just had basically no one playing. And obviously UCF wasn't the program that could really go toe-to-toe with anybody 2 years ago, and they embarrassed the Gators. And I think this is a situation that could possibly happen for Ohio. I stayed away. I don't know, man. This just didn't seem enough value, especially when the line flipped on me. Did you bet anything on this, Vaughn?
So I wanted to play the 3. It's at 3.5 now. So I could only be a lean at 3.5 since it's an odd number. Not that I expect many field goals to happen, because fun fact, the Ohio Bobcats have the second worst rated special teams unit in the country, which could definitely not help them out here, because not only is Curtis Rourke out, but their backup quarterback too. So that doesn't help them. They're down both the running backs 1 and 2, and one of their starting receivers. So you got on the list, and Ohio's players actually matter in this game. But for Georgia Southern, they lost the last 4 games of the season compared to Ohio, who, won the last 3 games of them. So you see 2 different teams coming in, one trying to save their season, the other one maybe not being as excited to play Georgia Southern. So I give the advantage to Georgia Southern, who definitely flipped to the favorites. But their quarterback, I will note this, Eric, before you hop in here. Georgia Southern's quarterback, according to PFF, had 29 turnover-worthy plays this season. That is a lot. So he's a gambler like us, and that's either going to work out well or not in his favor. But I like Georgia Southern here. I think if it gets to 3, it could be a play for me.
Yeah, 16 interceptions, QBR 45.7.
Yeah, good old Davis pickled Bryn. Yeah, unfortunately. Well, they throw the ball a lot too. This is Clay Helton's air raid adjacent sort of a system, so they're gassing it up pretty good. They're one thing on the Georgia Southern side, they haven't been hit too hard by the transfer portal, but starting running back Jalen White did suffer an injury in Week 12 and didn't play in the season finale against Appalachian State. O.J. Arnold put up 110 yards rushing in his absence. So even though Jalen White's out, they're not really very particularly compromised. Georgia Southern had pretty much a full roster. As Vaughn mentioned on the other side, Ohio, Curtis Rourke, both starting running backs, C. Bangura and O'Shawn Allison. In addition to that, their number one wide receiver, Miles Cross, 617 snaps. He's in the portal. Their other starting receiver, Tyler Walton, 598 snaps, also in the transfer portal. So they're basically just working with Sam Wiglitz out there in terms of their starting wide receiver core, and they don't have their starting quarterback, Curtis Rourke, who, I don't know if you remember last year, but Rourke was actually the highest graded quarterback according to PFF in the entire country in 22 until he tore his ACL in November. But since coming back, had a PFF passing grade from 92 to 82.6 in terms of his effectiveness. So it's clearly like that knee had been affected. But hey, you got Parker Navarro coming in. He isn't just the backup; he's the third string quarterback, because their last year's backup, CJ Harris, is out for the year due to a medical emergency. So this is actually the third guy down the trough for when the year began in terms of quarterback play. So as for my bowl challenges, I actually went with Georgia Southern. By the time the bowl game challenge dropped, it was plus 2.5 to Georgia Southern side. So if that's something you want to be looking at, if you're in one of those confidence pools, make sure you take a look if there are spreads involved and to see where they are, because these have moved since a lot of these pools did start up.
Okay. Yeah, I'll probably take them for my pool. I'm the kind of guy who literally waits till last minutes to fill out my pool. But we'll see what happens. Let's move over to the New Orleans Bowl. Jacksonville State, a 2.5-point favorite versus Louisiana, total set at 58.5. I had a strong lean on Chandler Fields over 255 and a half passing yards here. I didn't end up betting it, but Jacksonville State allowing 260 through the air, but they're not a bad passing defense. I think that's what held me off. 22nd in defensive success rate against the pass. I believe they're like 50th in EPA defense versus the pass. So it was a strong lean. I just didn't end up pulling the trigger. I kind of want the spread to be a little bit bigger, have a little correlated play there. Let's say the spread were to be about 5.5, maybe 6.5, then I'd definitely be a little bit more excited about kind of having to play from behind. But man, Jacksonville State getting bowl eligible here. It's a big story for them. I wouldn't be shocked at all to see them win this game here. I have them rated pretty significantly higher than the Raging Cajuns. This is not the Raging Cajuns team of old, but I end up kind of moving along there. Eric, do you have any props in this game you like?
Yeah, as far as the game goes with opt-outs and transfer portal issues, Jacksonville State, you have their kicker, Alan Karadzic. I don't know if that's correct. It sounds very Slavic, so I'm probably pronouncing it incorrectly. He hit the portal. He's been their kicker for 4 years. That's something to be aware of as well. Jacksonville State allegedly is going to be without starting cornerback Jabari Mack, played 400 plus snaps, and edge defender Jalen Swain. On the other side, Louisiana losing linebacker Kendra Grant. That's a pretty big loss. He's the number 3 graded PFF defender. Also of note, Louisiana quarterback Ben Woolridge was the starter. Started open the season. He was injured. Zion Chris took over. He was hurt to a leg injury. Lost. So you're dealing with some definite issues when it comes to health with Louisiana, and also 2 starters on the. You have Landon Burton, their starting center. He's played 600 snaps, and starting safety Courtline Flowers. Both are questionable for the bowl, as is running back 1 Draylon Washington. So again, contextually, a lot going on with these games. The prop I like here is going to be Jacob Cabote, running back for Louisiana. He's listed at 53.5 rushing yards. With Cabote, you remember Jacksonville State, while coached by Rich Rod, have an incredible run defense. Brad, you obviously mentioned, their pass, somewhat deficiencies here and there, but on the ground, this is a very stout defense. So with Cabote splitting carries a little bit, with Louisiana having the issues at quarterback, having some offensive deficiencies there, I don't think that you're going to see them be able to handle and keep up with Jacksonville State, who plays at one of the top 10 paces in the country. I think you see Jacksonville State get out to a lead here. It's going to be script-wise, put Louisiana in a bad spot where they're not going to be able to run the ball as much. I like Jacksonville State. I got them for 23 confidence points, and I like Cabote's under.
I love to hear that because I like Jacksonville State too, Eric.
Nice.
Watching these two back a little bit because we gotta hop on YouTube and watch the games from earlier in the season, and I definitely feel like Jacksonville State was the better team when watching these games. And this is kind of like the Louisiana Bowl because Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns are usually playing in this game, but this is going to be a big game for Jacksonville State, as Brad noted. This is the first bowl game for them in their program. Rich Rodriguez has done a heck of a job with them. And, he gets a lot of slack for his bowl record because what is he, 5-6, 2-9 against the spread? But we got to remember, too, Jacksonville State and Louisiana aren't the same as West Virginia, Michigan, and Arizona.
Yes.
And something that Eric also pointed out is, according to some metrics, Jacksonville State is number one in tempo so far this season. So that's a huge come up for them themselves, being so good this year. But 13 success rate on defense. I do like what Eric mentioned about the offensive line. That's a big deal. They're down 2 linemen against Jacksonville State. You could sign me up for the spread on Jacksonville State, but the kicker being out, now that's something that's definitely worth noting. So that's the one thing that scared me a little bit here, Eric. But
college
the way you said his name,
you never know what you're getting. You never know what happens when those college kickers line up. It doesn't matter how many they've hit in a row. You don't know.
So we may not even see many
battle tested kicker. That matters when it comes to these sort of games.
Yeah, so I might take the money line rather than take the spread there just because of, that factor, which may be silly or not. But that's definitely fair. A great note there. Great note.
I love the way you played that, Eric. Like, I think that your play feels a little bit more sound taking the under on the running back as opposed to the over on the quarterback with the game script possibly not being available there and against a good run defense. Like, it's great just to hear you talk about these player props for college football because you kind of look at it. And I think the most correct way possible. But let's talk about the Cure Bowl. I'm going to actually.
And I get what you're saying about Chandler Fields, too. Like, I get it, and it does fall in line with how I see the game playing out. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But, at least, the methodology, I think, is sound.
Appreciate that. Let's talk about the Cure Bowl. I actually go to the Cure Bowl. I donate to the charity every year. So it's down in Orlando, Miami, Ohio versus Appalachian State. Minus 6.5. Appalachian State is the favorite here. Total at 43. And listen, I had to have a bet on this game. I don't think that this is the strongest. This is probably my weakest bet on the entire card. But there's no way that I'm going to be at the game, standing on the sidelines without a bet in pocket. I went to Appalachian State here, taking the Mountaineers over Miami, Ohio. Miami, Ohio dealt a huge, massive blow. Not only is Brett Gabbert's out, but then Avion Smith is out as well. I don't think that it was one of those situations where it's like, okay, we can just throw another quarterback in there and have success. This is a team that obviously leans on their defense, and their offense was already really bad. Now you take away the legs of Smith. I think they're in for a doozy here. Appalachian State's scary to bet on, especially as a touchdown favorite. But if I had to pick between the two, I'd take Appalachian State. I am upset that I didn't get it at the 5.5, but I'm okay with the 6.5. Let's just hope they blow them out. And I'm just jumping up and down on the sideline as I'm cashing a ticket.
I could see that happening here because I don't think Miami's offense is really good either. But one thing I noticed here, because, when we were looking at these games earlier in the week, this total was sitting around 45 or 46. I said, maybe I might have to take a snag in this if it starts hitting some key numbers here. So this is going to be the first play for me that's official. We're going to go with the under 43 here. And it's because a lot what you said, too, about the quarterback position for Miami. We kind of don't know what we're going to get. Avion Smith, even in that championship game that they won to get bowl eligible, they won 23-14. Avion Smith had more rushing attempts than passing attempts. And I think that's kind of why he's out there, because his legs are probably much better than the backup options they had. We don't know what we're getting out of the passing aspect of Miami of Ohio in this game at all. What we know is both teams are going to play great defense. And in Miami, Ohio's 2 losses this year, they combined for 20 points. So when they don't win, they're not scoring. And for Appalachian State, Brad, the only thing on which, Eric, I'm probably still in your thunder here, is their leading rusher, Nate Noel, is going to be out for this game. Yeah. He hit the portal. So also that's taken away from Appalachian State's offense a little bit here. Makes me like the under. But as far as transfer portal, it seems like most of the guys that are out for Appalachian State are 2 or 3 deep guys on defense. So they don't make a huge difference here. So I'm going to go under 43. I expect Miami, Ohio to struggle to reach 10 points.
Yeah, I can't blame you for that. I understand your methodology with all of it. I am on Appalachian State for small confidence in my bowl pool. You got to give it to Miami. I mean, they only allowed 16 points a game and 4.9 yards per play. That's 16th best in the country. And they rode that defense to a MAC championship. You know, I mean, it's obviously working for them. But without Avion Smith, you know, which is something that, you know, obviously was mentioned by you guys and is extremely relevant since he's the second quarterback with Brett Gabbert obviously being hurt. You now have Henry Hessen, who has thrown exactly 5 passes in his career to this point, will be the starting quarterback. Now, with Appalachian State, pretty good in terms of against the pass. Like they're a little giving on the ground, but allowing 8.2 yards per pass. It's 31st in the country in terms of the Mountaineers passing offense themselves. That being said, this opened up at 47.5 points. As you know, we talked, this has gone down, you know, pretty significantly. It's down to 43. You've seen some 42s out there. So, you know, we're seeing which way the wind blows because of the relative strength of each of these defenses. When it comes to a prop that I particularly like in this game, I am going with the running back for Appalachian State, Kanye Roberts, Yeezy, as they like to call him. I think in the locker room. I don't know. I that's pure speculation. I just know how often do we get to talk about Kanye's here? You know, that we're not discussing anti-Semitism or something. So you got Kanye in the house, and with Nate Noel out, you know, these two have kind of been splitting carries for most of the season. However, Anderson Castle has also been there. So, like, this has been a 3-headed running back rotation. And Castle has actually been pretty darn good. He's probably been better than Roberts and Noel in terms of a per carry basis. With Noel out, I think you will see it go to a 2-man backfield rotation, maybe even slide somebody in the back. But I'm not convinced that Kanye Roberts is going to be the bell cow here for Appalachian State, playing against an extremely good G5 defense, easily a top 3 G5 defense, probably right there with Troy and James Madison. And then with the uncertainty of the carry distribution here, I just think that with 66.5 rushing yards being a mark that you're not seeing, I mean, it's not like Roberts is out there blowing that away all the time. He's only hit that, you know, twice in the course of the past 6 games. So with all these sort of factors at play, with a stout defense that they're going to have to be dealing with in Miami that plays at the slowest pace, 133rd in terms of pace of play in the country, I see Miami slowing this game down. I see them trying to wear down Appalachian State, who's not a particularly good run defense. They're better against the pass than the run. And I see this game going over, as will our boy Yeezy, Kanye Roberts, under 66.5 rushing yards.
Brad, I just looked up because, you know, we have a good friend in the chat here, Shane, talking about the weather. So I had to look at the update on here. Yeah. So you're going to be watching this game in that weather?
Oh, yeah. And once so the good thing about Orlando, and I want to say this, shout out to Shane. I was actually outside yesterday. I was outside walking around for about 3 or 4 hours yesterday. You could already feel the winds picking up, the wind gusts. But the good thing about Orlando is, like, these monsoons happen. I just imagine at UCF, like, they're pretty cautious. The monsoon happens, they're going to take the players off the field until there's clear weather. If not, you know, I'll be inside the press box. Like, I'm not obviously going to be getting rained on, not voluntarily at least. But yeah, there's a tropical storm coming in there. Good spot by Shane.
Wind gusts.
Hell yeah. And thanks to Xavier Jones giving us a shout out too.
Thanks, man.
See you, buddy.
Let's get into the New Mexico Bowl. New Mexico State, 3.5-point favorite versus Fresno State. Total setting at 51. Eric, kick things off because I think you have a laundry list of great plays to take.
Oh, geez. I always have a laundry list of plays, don't I, here? New Mexico State and Fresno State. This is a pretty exciting game, in my opinion. I'm actually kind of, you know, jazzed up about it. I know. Hold your excitement. But With New Mexico State, very little in the way of transfer portal stuff. The most impactful one is safety Malachi McLean. He only played 83 snaps and hit the portal. No problem. No starters, nothing. Jerry Kill, their head coach, has done an incredible job turning this team around. Diego Pavia is the one big caveat in this game where he was banged up, played through a shoulder injury in the CUSA loss to Liberty. However, Kill has said he will play, and that is vital because Diego Pavia is the engine of this offense. If he can't play, Eli Stowers probably go, but regardless. On the other side, Fresno State, they're losing starting safety Krishan Gordon. That's important. He was the best defender in coverage for this team. So that certainly helps New Mexico State on the passing front a little bit, not having their star safety. Injury news, they're starting left tackle for Fresno State out. Jacob Spomer, no good. That was their best offensive lineman. Their replacement left tackle, Torian Penwright, did not have a very good game when he was out there. So, in terms of protection, I have concerns on the Fresno State side. When it comes to, things that I'm playing, I like the under for 2 wide receivers in this game. Bah humbug. Jalen Moss, wide receiver, Fresno State. Yes, Mikey Keene will be playing, but I also like Mikey Keene's under at 255.5 passing yards. If you look at the way that this sort of team has gone, Mikey Keene was pretty darn good in the first half of the season. Back half, not very good at all. Got injured a little bit, got banged up, came back, hasn't cleared 200 yards in 3 of his last 4 games. You're going to put him at 255 here, as discussed. That's something that concerns me against a New Mexico State team that, as we discussed, is at its full operational capacity when it comes to the transfer portal and things of that nature. So with Fresno limping their way into this game, lost their last 3 in pretty convincing fashion, hasn't looked good. Their passing attack has been lackluster. I'm fading basically those 2 elements of the passing attack, which is Keene and Jalen Moss for the unders. 255 for Keene, 41.5 for Moss. And then on the other side, New Mexico State, I'm taking the under on Jonathan Brady for New Mexico State wide receiver. He's at 36.5 receiving yards. Where Pavia is as most dangerous is sort of creating outside of structure, running, the RPO sort of a game. Brady hasn't really been that involved. I'm going to take a speculation play on his under, but I like the 2 Fresno plays the most.
Listen, I was excited about this game. Jerry Kill, like you said, has done an amazing job with this New Mexico State team. Initially when I was handicapping this game and I was looking at a bet that I was going to play, I just wanted to go straight to one of the toppest rungs of Pavia's rushing yards and not even deal with the 47.5. But at the time, the alt lines weren't released. So I ended up locking in Pavia over 47.5 rushing yards. I don't think Fresno State's going to get too much pressure on the quarterback. And the best thing about that is it's not that we're going to need Pavia to have these consistent runs, where he's just getting these 3 and 5 yard runs that add up. What good thing about Pavia is he's so great at seeing where there's a lane, and he has these 20, 40-yard gashing runs, and I think they'll be available to him in this game. I am going to play his alt line. It's 80 plus at plus 450. It didn't get dropped when I had these, but that price is just too good. A guy who's hit this, I think, 5 times so far this season. I just think that we should be closer to plus 300. That's my look on there. I'm excited to bet Pavia. Even if he only hits the base, I think we're just getting too much value not to take the 80 plus.
Yeah, it's a nice alt line. Yeah.
When I saw Pavia, I was definitely intrigued by this game a little more because not only did I think it was going to be potentially the best game on the slate, now I think it could be one of the runaway games of the slate for New Mexico State, because one thing too, I'm not sure if Eric noted, was Jeff Tedford's out for Fresno State's head coach.
Yes.
Stepped away for health reasons. So that being out is a huge deal. And for Fresno State in general, they lost their last 3 games entering the bowl season. And in those 3 losses, they let their opponents score every single quarter. So all 3 opponents, all 4 quarters, 12 straight quarters of football, your opponent has scored points on you. that is definitely worrisome. The game is going to be definitely home crowd pointing towards New Mexico State here. The elevation also points to New Mexico State here. And as Eric said, a lot of the opt-outs for Fresno State doesn't make me confident. So I'm on New Mexico State minus a 3.5. I don't mind getting the hook here. I think that they could win by at least a touchdown. And they proved that with Diego saying, I'm coming back.
Yep. Yeah, coming back and healthy, which is every health is wealth. We know it's a shoulder, so anything could happen. He takes one bad hit, but let's hope he stays healthy throughout this game.
Yeah, I like New Mexico State too. Took them for 25 points in my bowl game challenge.
Yep. LA Bowl, Boise State versus UCLA. This one is a funny game here because if I remember correctly, we had a ton of opt-outs on both sides of the ball here. But more importantly, I think the most important or the most impactful opt-out is Taylon Green for Boise State, transferring to Arkansas. I ended up taking UCLA, even with Latu being out for this game. I just felt that defensively, I would want to back, and we know that UCLA's defensive coordinator left, but I still think defensively, I would want UCLA in this spot in LA against a Boise State team who's playing a backup quarterback with limited snaps here. Even just like looking at the numbers, like this wasn't the best year for UCLA offensively, right? Like I think they're 64th in offensive success rate, which is kind of low for this team here, but defensively, they were stout. I know Latu absolutely is impactful for this game, but I had to go with UCLA. Also, I didn't get the final update so far for Carson Steele, but
yeah,
I think that's going to matter. But I when I was grading this bet, I had Carson Steele worth 2 points. So if Carson Steele gets announced in, I'd imagine this line moves to 6. I think it's at 4.5 now already. So I had him rated for 2 points in this game.
Yeah, I'd have to imagine too. This moves to 6 points. I didn't see on Monday and Tuesday this week. I'm pretty sure Wednesday as well. He wasn't spotted practicing at all.
He wasn't,
and wasn't being interviewed. So that definitely wasn't. That's kind of what I'm looking at too, because I think he's the biggest factor for UCLA's offense. Like they're going to be down. Obviously, Dante Moore and Ethan Garbers. And then on Boise State side, it's not just Taylon Green, too, but Maddox Menson is out because he had an injury earlier this season.
Oh, yeah.
So, so they're down. Both teams are down their 2 quarterbacks. So, I was leaning UCLA in my confidence pools and my, pools for college football. I picked UCLA, too. But this is a spot. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe it's just purely an under spot. I mean, we're talking about both teams being on their third-string quarterbacks or worse here, and so many opt-outs on both sides. And we know UCLA plays great defense. I can never trust Boise State. They're on my no-bet list, so I'll say that outright.
Gabbers is going to play for this game.
He is going to play?
Yeah, Garbers is playing. Yeah,
Garbers is going to play.
I don't like him.
But it's funny, like, even when when you say that, like, when I say that to you, like, even in my notes, I have Ethan Garbers playing ... Like, it's not like I'm, like, adding a ton
I didn't know
of
if they're going to go with
line.
him. Yeah, I thought, they're going to go with – because they went with Schlee and then a little bit of Griffin in their last game, and Garbers didn't play. So I figured that, they're probably going to roll with those two guys because what else do you do at this point in the season?
I'm such not a Garbers fan. I even spelled his name wrong in my notes. I'm looking at it right now. It's pretty funny. No disrespect.
Maybe I should just go under. What do you think, Eric? Should I just go under?
Go under. That's up to you, buddy. I mean, I understand given the stout defense UCLA is tossing out there, but when it comes to Garbers, Garbers is going to play. At least he's a steady hand. When they had Dante Moore in there, I mean, he logged 432 reps. He's now in the transfer portal, but he was very undisciplined, and he's having a steady hand under center seemed to be, what this offense needed, sort of a thing. They're losing Keegan Jones. Their sort of scat back running back is in the portal. As you mentioned, Carson Steele. From what I had read, it's going to be, quote unquote, up to the training staff whether or not he plays on Saturday. So if he isn't practicing, it's going to be up to the training staff. I mean,
they're probably not going to let him play.
You're speculating here, but that really does play into one of my plays, which is simply Keegan Jones. He's their RB3. He's a 3-man backfield. He's in the portal. Carson Steele has not practiced. Extremely questionable. That leaves TJ Harden. And with Harden currently sitting at 79.5 rushing yards, I know that trends-wise, he's only really beat that once in the last 4 games, but he went nuclear. He went like 130, 140 yards on that. But with him getting the sole, lion's share of carries against a team in, Boise State that, yeah, I mean, they're not a bad defense, but look, this is a G5 defense here that wasn't exactly, blowing everybody away. This wasn't, what Boise had been their identity for years is they're playing stout D and they're going to run the ball on you. Well, that didn't happen this year. They're 87th in EPA per play. Against the pass, they were 125th in yards per pass against, 99th in yards per play allowed. So this is a different kind of a Boise State defense than what you're used to hearing about. So I'm not, with TJ Harden being likely the only guy who's touched the ball with any regularity that is going to be active, I'm looking at his alt line. I think you could look at it. He's up there at 79.5. I'd go, if you can go 110, 120, what you can max it out at, I would look around and try to take it for that 2-1, 3-1 odds. So that's definitely where I am on that respect with TJ Harden. It's just sort of a case of attrition. He's the last man standing. For UCLA, losing Latu, who's their first round caliber edge player, that's obviously a loss on the defensive side. You'll see Kamari Ramsey starting safety. He's out as well, but they actually are pretty deep there. So I'm not too concerned about it. On the Boise State side, like you said, Taylon Green, but also wide receiver Eric McAllister.
Yep.
Opted out and entered the transfer portal a few weeks ago. So those are 2 of their 3 best offensive players. Ashton Genty, their star running back, is back. He has said he's not entering the portal. He's coming back next year. He's a superstar. So with him and Helani have been splitting reps in the backfield, I see Genty getting the majority of the carries, which leaves Helani. He's currently sitting there at 73.5 rushing yards. That is a big number for a RB2 against UCLA defense that is top 15 in terms of run defense this year, and that's in the Power 5. Last game against Cal, Jaden Ott, who is an exceptional Pac-12 running back, he ran for 80 yards on 21 carries, just 80 yards. He averaged under 4 yards per carry against this UCLA defense. They're going to have most of their line with the exception of Latu. I love the under for George Helani, 73.5 yards, and that is my best bet for the weekend.
I locked that in.
Under 73.5 yards. He's the RB2 for Boise State going up against a stout Power 5 run defense, and you got Ashton Genty who'll be in there. Dude, give it to me. Give it to me.
I locked
73.5.
I locked that in. That line is massive. Massive.
Oh. Yeah. Show me.
Yeah.
I need to see it.
Yes, you got to see it, right? Those are one of those you can live with if you get busted on. But let's go to the independence.
I'm taking UCLA for high confidence points. 32 high confidence points taking UCLA.
Yeah, I think I took UCLA like a couple of different ways here. I got a little nutty in this. I like them to win. But Independence Bowl, Texas Tech 3-point favorite versus Cal. Total set at 57 points. This was my parlay. And I actually parlayed this twice. I took Jaden Ott, 80+ rushing yards, plus Appalachian State money line at -108. I also took it with UCLA, which is plus money. I think it's like plus 105. I bet UCLA a lot this week, just to be really clear. But Texas Tech, so far in this season, got absolutely ran on. Texas ran on them, had like a million dudes run for 50, 60 yards. UCF ran on them. Kansas ran on them. BYU ran on them. It was just a bloodbath. I think that we're going to see a ton of action for a guy who already was getting a lot of work. I went with the 80 route because I'm just afraid like this just has one of those disappointment games written all over it for Texas Tech. Texas Tech right now, I do like them to win, but it has one of those situations where if Texas Tech goes down, right, I just see Cal just leaning on them, just leaning on that run game. And I think that Cal's a live dog. I think, when we talked about this, I don't know if this was off air or before the show, I said that I have a lot of favorites. This would be one where I could definitely see Cal putting up a fight and getting out to an early lead, which means you're going to run with Jaden a lot more.
Yeah, and I got one more. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. One more for the UCLA game. I did want to take.
Oh, my bad. Sorry about that.
No, it's my fault. I'll take Austin Bolt, wide receiver for Boise State, under 28.5 receiving yards, with CJ Tiller, the third string true freshman QB who has never taken a snap in college, starting at quarterback, because obviously, as we mentioned, Taylon Green is in the portal and Madsen is out for the year. I need to see them complete some passes first. I wanted to take one of the receivers. Took Austin Bolt under 28.5 yards. Sorry. Back to Cal, Texas Tech. Jaden Ott. I love the Jaden Ott play. He's listed at 102.5 rushing yards right now. And, where they're playing against a Texas Tech team that, as you mentioned, I mean, they've been getting stomped by everybody they're dealing with on the ground. All right. They've allowed 200 plus rushing yards. Okay. If you're allowing over 100, okay, you're getting taken. 200 or more in 4 of the last 6 games, and 200 plus in the last 3 games in a row, Texas Tech has allowed on the ground. Jaden Ott's the obvious number 1 guy. He's going to be getting the ball early and often. I love the over 102.5. Take a look at any alt lines you could find out there for him. I saw 120 is at plus 155. I'll take it if you can get it. I love Ott's over. I think they're going to absolutely march on Texas Tech today.
Yeah, I can't make up my mind on this game, guys, because I say, as Brad said, I like all the favorites up until this game is when I'm like, you know what? I kind of feel the dog in the situation. But for Cal, their offensive coordinator also left, went to Baylor. So now they got an O-line coach in there calling plays, which, I mean, that's probably good for Jaden Ott. I don't know about the receivers if they're thrilled about that, but Cal was pretty good this season, and they played the underdog role really well, and they won their last 3. And Texas Tech, even though they do let everyone run all over them, they looked pretty good offensively at times, and they won 3 of their last 4 games outside of getting curb stomped by the Texas Longhorns. But I see the total keep dropping. It was 59, 58, 58.5, and now it's down to 57. And I'm kind of confused by that, guys, because we got both star running backs in Taj Brooks and Jaden Ott. We got quarterbacks in here that seem capable, and 2 teams that look like they want to win. So I lean the over here. I don't know if I'm going to get to the window on anything in this game. It seems like a trap, but I think, Brad, I agree with you. The dog is live. The over is probably a good bet. I think both running backs have good shows.
This is one of those games where you guys as bettors should pay a lot of attention to multiple sports books. In some shops, Cal's almost a 4-point dog, getting close to a 4-point dog. In some shops, Texas Tech is almost a 3-point favorite, which is mind-blowing how that, how you can have an entire point difference. So I would just pay attention. If you like one side, just make sure you shop, because I was looking at the numbers so far, and you can have, I think it's like MGM, I think you'll get to a 4. And then I think with Bet Rivers, you'll get to a 3. So just make sure you pay attention to that. I might have said it backwards. I think I said it backwards. So just make sure you pay attention to that wherever you want to bet. Any more bets for this game before we get to the next one?
Yeah, I'm going to take the under on Dre McCray, wide receiver, Texas Tech, at 30.5 receiving yards. Texas Tech is losing to the transfer portal their top offensive lineman, left tackle Monroe Mills. He took every single snap this year. So that will be, the blindside protector for Baron Morton. That's going to be a pretty big issue. Also, you got a lot of wide receivers in the portal for Texas Tech. So it's kind of up in the air in terms of what the roles are going to be. Leading up to this game, McCray had been clearly behind the starters in terms of snap counts and things of that nature. And with Xavier White still sticking around, he's clearly the best receiver they have, both inside and outside. He's an inside slot. I think he'll be the focal point there, which means McCray, who's also a slot receiver, is kind of be second in the pecking order, but behind White. I just think with all those things kind of factored in, and is why I'm kind of leaning on the under there.
That's fair. Let's get into the best bets. Guys, it's going to be as transparent and brutally honest as possible. My best bet was the Jaden Ott 80 plus Appalachian State money line at -108. I thought the price was right. I'm going to put like some alt lines for Ott, but I haven't really got to the window like at the numbers right now. Obviously, I'm only working off 2 different sources in DraftKings and Offshore. So we'll see, but I just think a big game for him on the ground. What's your best bet, Vaughn?
Yeah, I'll be telling the Ott play, especially with Eric's ladder, because that's what he's got to play on Ott as well.
Okay.
And I found out, so my friend Damon, if you're watching the show right now, you better be placing Eric and Brad's player props, because this guy told me his state didn't have him. When I went down there, they had him. Boy, I had steam going out the ears.
Come on, Damon.
We could have been rich. So my best bet. It's not a player prop, not yet. But New Mexico State -3.5 here. As the guys all said, they're highly confident on this team here. Diego being in here. I like the defense. I like the fact that Fresno State's Jeff Tadford is their head coach. And he's been very successful in bowl games. And you saw all these opt-outs, so the players obviously knew he wasn't going to be coaching here. So I see one team very motivated with more crowd advantage there. In elevation against a team that may not want to be here. So give me New Mexico State, but I also do really love that Miami App State under. I think that one drops down to 41 or so. How about you, Eric?
Well, as discussed, I love the George Holani under 73.5 rushing yards. If I had to go another, we'll pick a game here. I do like the UCLA line over Boise State with just all the turmoil that's going on in Boise State, everything that's going on with that team, with the quarterback being out, with the top receiver being out. I just feel like it's a lot to go with. So since I will be in attendance at the LA Bowl, for UCLA Boise State, I have to go with UCLA.
Yeah, fair enough.
Just same methodology with you. Like we have to get something down on this.
100%. The People's Parlay, Eric. We didn't get your pick for the People's Parlay. Did you have one?
Yeah, let's go with UCLA. Yeah, definitely.
That's what I'm on for the People's Parlay too. So
kick that in. Oh, so you're in too. Okay. All right.
We're just gonna do a 2-legger.
We'll do the 2-leg. Oh, Jacksonville State.
Jacksonville State. Yeah.
All right.
That would be my next one. Sure.
All right. Cool. Jacksonville State. Wow. Let me
makes
put these in real quick. Do you have the odds already?
Yeah, that makes it 298 plus 298.
Plus 298. Let's ride. Yeah. So, guys, we were kind of just spit over the People's Parlay. I'll say it out loud. Jacksonville State money line, New Mexico State money line, and UCLA money line plus 298. Let's cash this bad boy. I don't think we need to go over those games again. Let's get into Monday's game. Famous Toastery Bowl, Old Dominion versus Western Kentucky. Old Dominion is a 2-point favorite, total set at 54.5. I'm not going to bet this one until I get to read news, but I don't know, I don't have like a confidence rating, but I'm fairly certain Austin Reed's not going to play in this game. This just why would you risk the injury with 3 of your top offensive linemen out in a meaningless bowl game? So I think I'd have to bet Old Dominion here, but let's just be honest. This is not a good Old Dominion team. So I ended up passing. But if I don't know, man. Even if Austin Reed was in, I think I'd probably still not bet it. Just because the fact, protecting your quarterbacks is so important. ODU is not good against the pass whatsoever. But, not protecting your quarterback doesn't matter. You can't throw the ball. Did any of you guys have a play for this game?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask Eric something first, because what's the number for college, especially what you would consider for Western Kentucky Old Dominion in win factor, that would make this game start to look towards the unders on these guys? Because I'm seeing 17 to 18 miles per hour right now projected between these two.
I like to see consistent right around 20 with gusts up to 25. Okay. If you can hit the magic numbers around 23, 24, if you can get to 23, 24, I start getting really excited and it starts becoming under time.
Okay.
Yeah. That's at least how I'm at. I'd like to see 20, I want to see 20. High teens is cool with good gusts, it can matter.
Yeah. This is by far the windiest game that we'd be talking about this week outside of the Florida one, and not going to reach our number. So just wanted to ask that. But go ahead, Eric.
Well, yeah, I mean, that even plays in the favor of Old Dominion even a little more. When it comes to Western Kentucky, they're already kind of up against it. Like you said, the speculation around their quarterback, Austin Reed, will he stick around? Will he hit the road and start beginning prep for the NFL draft? Very reasonable to speculate about that. But even so, even if he's there's no Malachi Corley.
Yep.
He said he's opting out. You have 4 offensive linemen. You have Wes Dorsey, who's a tackle, 678 snaps. Starting center, Vincent Murphy, 822. Starting guard, 787. So you have 3 every down offensive linemen who are also in the portal. You have their top linebacker, Desmond Baker, as well as Upton Stout, safety. So we're just talking about this a lot to deal with here for Western Kentucky. And then on the other side, Old Dominion, sure, everyone's going to have some portal entries. Javon Harvey, last year's top wide receiver, he's in the portal, and I think he's already committed somewhere. But there's not too much that I'm sitting here that's irreplaceable in terms of what Old Dominion has in the portal. So because of that, with the defections of Western Kentucky, I'm going to roll with ODU. I'm going with Old Dominion. I got them for 34 confidence points due to the defections.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I feel like you have to, right? Like, man, it's just, we talk about this year in and year out, when teams lose offensive linemen, that's just the kiss of death right there, because keeping your quarterback upright is the most important. And it's not like, I think that's probably the hardest, outside of quarterback, obviously, the hardest next man up position, because the drop off for a lot of these teams, especially like a Western Kentucky, in that every down offensive lineman to the next guy is pretty massive. It's not like a Georgia who's just stockpiling, or a Michigan who's stockpiling offensive linemen. Let's talk about the Frisco Bowl, because I actually have a play. I'm sorry, Vaughn. I only typed UTSA, so I did fill out the rest of it.
I know what your
Marshall.
play is.
Cool. Marshall versus UTSA -13. Over under set at 52.5. Before I get into my play, there was a lot that I wanted to bet in this game. It took a lot of discipline for me to pick one, because I liked UTSA's team total over. I liked their first half team total over. I liked their first quarter team total over because it was plus money. I would have set it a little lower at minus probably 120. I ended up going with UTSA -3 in the first quarter. It was even money when I locked it in. This is a UTSA team who, first of all, the biggest and most important news was Traylor staying on as head coach. Like, I for sure thought he was gone. Like, if you would put a bet on it, I would have bet he was gone. This is a team that is, let me pull up my notes here before I start talking outside. I made a video on it. A team that is dynamic. They're good defensively, and they're playing against a Marshall team who is going to be down to Cole Pennington as their quarterback. A Marshall team who was already pretty shaky to start games. The fact that they couldn't sustain drives, they turned the ball over, which was already really difficult. They're only allowing 5.6. I'm sorry, this is a repeat for anybody who watched my video, but they're only allowing 5.6 yards per, 5.6 points per first quarter. But this is a UTSA team that starts fast. They play fast. And I think this is going to give them a ton of motivation to play hard for Traylor coming back. Like, man, I was really excited about this game. I'm probably going to end up betting a ton of it. But my favorite was definitely the first quarter. I could see this something being like 7-0, 7-3 in the first quarter.
Yeah, when I see this game and I went to break it down, all I could think about is how Eric owes me an apology for the UTSA. This guy, we could have had a new North Texas baby.
Right.
We could have had a new North Texas baby, but yeah. After pushing on them the first week, we got on them, and they went on a massive winning streak after that. Won 7 straight games. Yeah, and they covered a lot of spreads, and we weren't on them just because simply we were like, yo, you can't even defend Temple. So yeah, but they've been impressive offensively. The Roadrunners have been running up the score any chance they get, and 6 of their 7 games during that stretch were by 10 or more points, which is definitely something you want to see here when they're laying 13. The spread was 10 less than a week ago. And for Marshall, I mean, Eric, I don't know what your opinion on them is.
I think it was 8.5.
Yeah, it continued as a climb. I mean, it's moved up almost a full touchdown now. And at some point, we got to say, is enough? But also, are we just going to see like a Raiders-Chargers night here? and UTSA just blow them out by 40 plus, because that's possible. Because I don't know if Marshall's good. 6 of their last 8 games they've lost. And when they in their last 4 losses, they've scored 9 or fewer points. And this Cole Pennington character, yeah, like you said, Brad, 0 touchdowns, 6 picks. Like, I want no parts of backing that. So the only way I could look is UTSA minus 13. And I know the spread's moved a touchdown, but they clearly are a much better team. Eric?
Yeah, well, with Marshall, I mean, this team is in disarray pretty much. I mean, the offensive staff pretty much, they did some shaking up when it comes to that after the season. Offensive coordinator Clint Trickett, former West Virginia quarterback, has been unceremoniously fired. They brought in Purdue tight end coach Seth Dagey, former Texas Tech quarterback. You have a West Virginia and a Texas Tech quarterback here. Both of them probably played against each other. Is taken over. But they also fired the wide receiver coach, fired their offensive line coach, fired their linebackers coach. Like, it was a thorough fleecing of Marshall. Their roster, everything is being looked at there. In addition, transfer portal wise, Cam Fancher, the starting quarterback, he's in the portal. He will not be playing. Their number 1 receiving option, Caleb Coombs, also in the portal. Their best interior pass blocker, Trent Holler, left guard, he's also in the portal. So you have these vital contributors to their offense that are also out. With Fancher, he's being replaced by a man with a familiar last name, Cole Pennington, Chad Pennington relation. But unfortunately, unlike Chad Pennington, man, Cole has been horrific.
Yeah.
A 0-6 touchdown interception ratio while averaging 1.7 yards per attempt. Yikes. When it comes to UTSA, they're only missing very, very little in the portal. They're missing their star edge player, Trey Moore. That will be a loss. But everyone else is back, including Jeff Traylor. I just can't. I'd love to find a reason to give Marshall a look. You can't do it.
You can't.
You have to go with UTSA. Yeah. This could be a massacre.
With Moore,
Frank Harris too.
Frank Harris. Yeah. That's
Maybe.
A good one to say. Yeah.
Maybe.
I will say this with Trey Moore. Trey Moore is out there on a freaking world tour trying to get his services. Every time I see it, he's visiting another college. Like, he's be highly talented this transfer window. There was one
AAC Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah. I just hope he doesn't go to Texas. Like, if he doesn't go to Alabama, like, keep him out of the SEC. That's pretty much how I feel.
Listen to you, of course. So selfish.
I had something else to say about this game before I forget. For those anybody who's taking the first quarter, like, this is definitely going to be a game that I chase. If they don't cover in that first quarter, I'll probably be taking their team total, because imagine if they don't cover in the first quarter, it's going to be something like 7-7. I'll just end up taking their first quarter. I'll end up taking their team total over if they only score 7 in the first quarter and they give up a touchdown.
Probably a flea flicker.
One last thing. Rasheen Ali, his status is still up in the air. He's a potential opt-out, but I haven't heard anything on it yet. So you can't go either. If he was an opt-out, my God, I don't know how they move the ball.
Honestly. Yeah, I saw that too. All right, let's get to the Boca Raton Bowl. Fun bowl game here, South Florida versus Syracuse. But for me, I just thought, like, you'd want to take the total, if anything. But it's just like South Florida struggles to score at times. 104th in nets points per drive. Offensively is where I have a little bit of issue. But what's good in that number, that 104 number, is they give up a ton of touchdowns. They give up a ton of points. Quality possessions. Let's put it this way. They make bad teams look like they're getting quality possessions. So I leaned to the over, but I ended up not playing anything. Go ahead and kick us with your bet, Vaughn.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I like the over too. I want to see more what the weather's looking like for this game, whether we're getting some clear skies at night for these two. But yeah, I have no confidence in USF's defense here. Syracuse too, it was a team where, we were excited about them to start the season. We were saying Garrett Schrader and the Orange, they could actually be, something that's worth monitoring all season. And they kind of just fell apart. Lost 6 of their last 8 games. Schrader dealt with some injuries. They switched up a few quarterbacks, and whether I think he's playing in this game, which will definitely help because versus bad defenses, I still think Garrett Schrader is a capable quarterback, and UCF's not going to be doing too much here. So anytime you go toe to toe with Memphis 59-50, UTSA 49-21, these type of games, we don't forget these type of scores. So I definitely think both teams could reach 30 in this game. What say you, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, it's reasonable to feel that way. When it comes to Syracuse, one of my favorite little anecdotes, with Dino Babers being relieved of his duties, the acting coach is none other than interim HC tight ends coach Nunzio Campanile. I mean, what a phenomenal name, Nunzio. Like I love that name. So I mean, props to Syracuse for that. That being said, edge player Leon Lowry, number 3 on the team with 7 TFLs. He is in the transfer portal. That's no fun, since he is probably their most effective edge player, as well as defensive lineman Terry Lockett, who is their second highest graded run defender for Syracuse. Something to keep in mind. Over on the USF side, I mean, not a lot really in terms of the portal stuff. Edge Lloyd Summerall, he played 305 snaps, is in the transfer portal, but that's really the only guy who even had any impact. He had even fallen out of favor towards the second half of the season. But their starting left guard and starting right guards are both questionable with undisclosed injuries. That's definitely something that will be a factor for a UCF team that plays fast. They come out and they really just rip their way down the field with Byram Brown. With Syracuse in transition, I know they're the favorite, but I took the 3.5 points at the time. I think it's 3 now. And I'm going with USF since I feel like they're more motivated, having been down for years and years, having a new coach come in, and then, having a productive season. I just think they have more to play for.
I will not argue with that. Yeah, they had a lot going on last year in a positive manner, and it didn't work out to start the season. But yeah, should be proud. South Florida should be proud of themselves. Honestly.
They should. Yes, definitely. Yes, they should be proud of themselves. And I say this as an Alabama guy because everyone was giving Alabama crap while they were testing out quarterbacks for having a tough game with South Florida. This is a bowl eligible South Florida team, but I think like a lot of people forget that this is a bowl eligible South Florida team. Way to put it together and make a bowl game here. Speaking of Alabama, let's talk about the college football playoff. First, number 4 Alabama versus number 1 Michigan. Michigan is a 1.5 point favorite. Total set at 45.5. What I find funny about this game is line opened. Okay, so retail it opened at 2.5. It opened at 3 in Vegas, but on retail books it opened up at 2.5, down to 1.5. I do believe there might be some buyback here. Nick Saban's numbers, though, as the coach in bowl games, 12-8 against the spread, always been great as an underdog. The good news for Bama, Jace McClellan, if you guys remember, missed the championship game there. But like I said in our show, Alabama would have some guys that would step up in that game. He is probably going to play in this game, and Kool-Aid McKinstry should be able to get over his minor knock in that game, which is huge for Alabama. I will say this. I don't have a strong lean or feeling about this game. I do think that, the one-sidedness of Michigan actually makes me a little bit more excited to bet Alabama. But I don't have a strong conviction either way. I took Alabama plus 1.5 because I'm homer as hell. I'm just going to call a spade. My numbers on these teams are pretty even. I'd say the glaring weakness for Alabama is how they're going to line up, how their defensive line is going to line up against that Michigan offensive line. But I mean, when Michigan's running the ball 75% of the time, it makes life a little bit easier as a defensive lineman. So I went with Alabama plus 1. I'm not even going to care about the buyback here. Let me go to you first, Eric. Do you have any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, with Michigan, you have starting right guard Zach Zinter. He had started every game this year before suffering a season-ending injury. He had a 76.6 PFF overall grade at the time of his injury. That's a pretty big loss. But that's life. It's the only guy that pretty much you're looking at for Michigan that isn't going to be around. Same thing for Alabama. You have Ja'Cory Brooks in the portal, but he has been clearly usurped by the younger. I mean, he has been a persona non grata. He's basically a nothing at this point. As you stated, Jace McClellan deemed probable. Also, Kool-Aid McKinstry left the SEC title game with a minor concussion. So the fact that he's expected to play and is listed as probable too. With Vaughn and I heavily leveraged in the FSGA gambling pool.
Oh, yeah.
Our contest. We're heavily invested in Michigan to win the national title preseason. So, where he and I, we went and put it on the line for Michigan back in August. I got to stick with them. I want to stay the course. Sure. Playing Alabama, not as appealing as playing Florida State without Jordan Travis, of course, as you heard the Michigan faithful when that was announced, sort of grunt and groan about it. But I do still think that it just feels like Michigan's year. They are the team of 2023, whether we like it or not. And more often than not, when those teams, when it seems like the team of destiny things coming together, it happens. So I am going to stay the course with Michigan.
I did bet Michigan preseason too, and I put them in my video. I thought it was a great hedge to have Michigan to make the playoffs and to bet them to win it all, because I knew they were going to make the playoffs. And unfortunately, sorry for Ohio State. I knew they were going to beat Ohio State. But I'm not rooting for that future. Like, I had no part of me will be rooting for that future. My family's coming over. I'm gonna make some meatballs. I'll make some little smokies, and I'm gonna make a queso dip.
Smokies.
So like it's gonna be full celebration in the Thomas household. I gotta get my little daughter Juliet another outfit so she can be rocking her pom-poms. Like, we're gonna be full Crimson Tide. Money to the side. Like, that's all I'm gonna bet on. I'm not even remotely think about placing a bet on anything pro Michigan.
Sorry, man. Sorry that you got to lose money this way. But, we all have to lose money on our favorite teams. But even if I have to lose money on my favorite team, I'll accept that L to Alabama. I think this is the national championship right here. Michigan versus Alabama, similar to last year when we had Ohio State and Georgia. I mean, Harbaugh and Saban. And Eric, you summed up everything that I'd want to say and more. I feel like Michigan is the team of destiny, and I've been thrilled and excited to watch this team week in and week out, and the defense.
You've made plenty of money off this team too.
Yes,
I mean, for me,
left and right this season.
It's like, I was at axe throwing, live betting, and then when my friends are throwing axes, I was like, hold up, I'll be up in a second. I got to make sure I get this Iowa to not score a single point in the first half. But I think that Michigan and Alabama is going to be a game that lives up to the hype. The only thing that makes me nervous, Brad, about Alabama finding success is no one's had success throwing deep on Michigan this year. No one's even really tried too much. When Ohio State tried, it was more Marvin Harrison and Boca on drag routes and things of that nature. But Jalen Milroe has been a quarterback that can stretch the field.
Yeah.
So, if he finds success in that avenue, I think that's how Alabama wins this game.
Sounds good to me, boys.
I will say I'm not nervous about the game. I think I was really nervous about the SEC championship, and I think the Alabama is feeling the same way, right? Like, they're playing with house money. Like, for them getting in was like, I don't think many people thought that was going to happen, and they got in. Whether you believe it was fair or not, we're past that now. Now we just have to play the games. Speaking of playing the games, a game I'm actually really excited for. Texas, 4-point favorite versus Washington. Total set at 64.5. They call me a coward, call me whatever you want, but I bet 2 bets because I think at worst I go 1-1. And why I say that is I took Texas -4 and over 63.5 points. I don't think Washington wins this game or covers this spread without the total going over here. Because you have to look at Washington's run defense, right? Texas has been loving running the ball. Even Brooks going down, they're continuing to run the ball with success. Washington's run defense has been one of their bugaboos all season. So we know Texas is going to be able to establish a run, which makes life easier for Quinn Ewers, who's been playing like a madman. Adonai Mitchell's been playing absolutely phenomenal. Xavier Worthy. It's funny because you get a heavy dose of both of these guys, and they still have other weapons who are playing at a high level. So I think Texas is going to get their points. Now, all right, is Texas going to cover the spread? Maybe. I think so. But if Washington covers the spread or Washington wins this game, you better believe there's going to be close to 70 points in this game.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I got the over when it opened at 63.5, and I expect this to close 65 to 67, somewhere in between that range. It's going to be closer to game time. But everything you said, top 20 passing efficiency offenses. Last year in the college football semifinals, we saw 179 points scored in 2 games. And we see 2 teams that have struggled on third down defenses. Specifically, Washington's ranked 80th in the country. So I'll take the over here.
Yeah, with Texas, if there's a play that I like the under on C.J. Baxter's 72.5 rushing yards. And the reason why is I took the under on him going into the conference championship game as well, last show that we had. The reason why is because even though Jonathan Brooks went down, instead of Baxter, who's a true freshman, just being given the entire share, you saw Savion Red, you saw Jaden Blue. I don't know if there's a white that's in there so we can have the full American flag, but we got red and blue. And those guys were just as involved as Baxter was, really. You know what I'm saying? It was a 3-man deal as opposed to the primary with Brooks and then the secondary with Baxter. It was a 3-man weave. So definitely the dynamic of the running back room changed. And when you're going up against, Washington, sure. Is their run defense very good? No, admittedly, it's not the best run defense we've ever seen. But when you're dividing the carry share amongst 3 backs and you got the other 2 who are both more experienced than Baxter. Baxter's the only 2 freshmen. The other 2 are second and third year players. They have a little more trust. They've built up a little more goodwill and equity. I just think you see more of a 3-way share than as opposed to Baxter being the lion and then, the Lambs getting whatever's left over. I'm taking CJ Baxter under 72.5 rushing yards.
Yeah. We talked about that Texas running attack already. Great plays there. Anything else that you guys want to get out before we let everyone go here? Any more plays that are on your docket?
Good.
No, the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to beat the Colts on Saturday. Though, that's all I got to say.
Hey, I love it. I love it. Juventus is going to win today against Genoa in Italian Serie A in soccer. But guys, we will be back next Friday, same time. I want to thank everyone in the chat for dropping your questions. See you guys there. Thanks to BetMGM for Eric Froton and Vaughn Dalzell and Brad Thomas. Best of luck this weekend.